Hello, all. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of the Recap Show. My name is Joshua Moinian, the NYU Schack's PropTech and Innovation Chair, and I am fortunate to co-host the show with.
Hey guys, Mariel Ebrahimi, CEO of DisruptCRE, and this week we are recapping an episode between Dean Chandan of NYU Schack Institute of Real Estate and leadership from NYU Schack. So let's jump in and we're going to show some clips and discuss.
We have the potential to face a much more serious long-term and chronic unemployment or structural unemployment issue in the United States than we have in the past. And we have very limited means at the state and local level to actually support folks who find themselves in those positions. Our best hope there is to introduce an even greater degree of flexibility into the education system, particularly community colleges, to say what are the skills that are in demand, how can we adapt quickly to actually make sure that folks who need to acquire new skills have the opportunity to do so. Give them the opportunity to re-engage in an economy that's changing more rapidly than ever before.
Okay, Josh, as someone starting out in your career, what do you think?
Exciting times, like I've been touching on in previous recap shows, just that someone coming out of college with a background, a high level background in education, are now exposed to an industry that's in need of change and iteration. So what better time for a student like myself to hop in to an ever-growing industry with people from other industries feeling more welcome now to come in. Someone maybe with a more tech background could feel more welcomed and easily transition themselves into a dynamic real estate industry, one that we all know is in need for change or adoption of tech for that
Why
reason.
do you think that is? Why do you think they're all of a sudden feeling like real estate is applicable to them kind of across industries?
Oh, I think it comes down to just the response of the pandemic. Real estate sees whether they realize that there's a need for change in order to adopt to the post-COVID world, right?
Do you think that the kind of prioritization of technology in commercial real estate is kind of pushing for more traditional tech talent to approach the industry where maybe they would never have considered it before?
I totally agree with that sentiment. Yes, 100%. The smaller real estate families or the developers with a couple units or the broker starting themselves out in a suburb in Westchester. For some way, somehow, they all felt obligated out of necessity to start utilizing the technology, which again will create or has already created a greater adoption in the industry, which will then lead to other professionals within other industries coming into real estate, finding their niche.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting. There's always been this gap in skills in the last many years in commercial real estate. There's a big talent gap. But I think as new technology has been more rapidly adopted in the last 5 to 7 years than it has been probably historically for all of commercial real estate, you just fundamentally need new skills, right? Things that didn't, jobs that didn't exist even a couple of years ago, all of a sudden exist and are high priority careers. And so, those are heads of innovation, workplace strategy, a variety of different kinds of facility management, asset management has fundamentally changed. I mean, I think across the board, almost every career under the umbrella of commercial real estate has been impacted in some capacity because of technological advances or implementation. And so naturally, you need new skills. I do agree with Sam Chandan. we need to make these things more accessible. He talks about community colleges, but, kind of across the board, if you're teaching real estate studies, these really tangible skills are part of that curriculum. And I do think that the industry is also more approachable to people who probably never considered a career in commercial real estate as something that was relevant to them. But all of a sudden they connect with startups, they understand and kind of connect with more of the industry because of tech. And so I think that's an amazing thing. And we've seen even kind of, we've seen a lot of your bigger companies hire, C-level executives. These are large global brokerages. They're hiring C-level executives from adjacent industries, industries including entertainment and media, where they're very used to using data to make decisions. In fact, like those businesses rely entirely on consumer behavior to make decisions. And so I think it's a really cool thing. It's a really great time to be first kind of jumping into studying commercial real estate and the tangible skills. So with that, let's show the next clip.
Yeah.
Cool.
As the balance adjusts, the radius within which I can think about locating starts to expand. And you're going to have some folks who are saying, well, if I only am going in 3 days a week, I can tolerate that commute, an hour each way, 3 days. And in return, what I'm going to do is I'm actually, I've just had, my second kid. My first is 4 or 5 years old. I need to start prioritizing a good quality public school. It was a really, really tough situation and a tough optimization problem for me to work through. When I was, previously, but if I'm only going in 3 days a week, I've got a wider range of markets now that I can think about as relevant.
First thing I'm thinking is freedom. When I hear Dean Chandan speak on this topic, I just think about the greater opportunities for a family with an interest in maybe like something specific, like a rock climbing. Maybe they're a rock climbing family and they would like to be near some center where they could do just that. Maybe now they can. Something super niche and specific.
Awesome example.
It's the first thing that came to my head. But what I'm getting at is that I don't want to call it financial freedom, but maybe geographic freedom, obtainability, things that you may not be able to have done, but now you can do because you're closer to the things that you love.
Yeah.
Maybe on a more not rock climbing, but if you have your grandmother nearby, that's also something that's a push to be near. But maybe
you can reprioritize.
I think it really comes down to just that.
Yeah. No, I like how you put it, freedom. To do whatever, reprioritize things other than work and like your proximity to wherever your office is. Yeah, I totally agree. And he says it's this major shift between, okay, I may not have been willing to commute an hour when I had to go into the office 5 days a week, but now maybe I'm going in maximum 3 days a week, which might be a maximum. I mean, who even knows? There's a scale depending probably on your job, depending on your need to actually physically be in the office, the rotation schedule, whatever it happens to be. So yeah, people can prioritize other things. Maybe there's a school that they want their kids to go to that are, that's for any number of things, whatever your priorities are. Everyone has different thoughts about this. So yeah, I mean, this is a big shift. And he kind of says, I think before this clip, that if we had let this natural kind of reprioritization as humans take place prior to this pandemic, then it may have been a little bit more organic to happen, because it's, again, just another example of how COVID has accelerated existing trends, meaning people already know that we can work remotely. They already, some people have already decided not to go into the office 5 days a week if their job allows. And so, we're much more of a mobile society, as you've said multiple times, kind of that asset light mindset. Definitely our generation, maybe we're two different generations, but our generation, we definitely value flexibility. And so maybe this trend is kind of already on the rise, but it's accelerated to such an extent.
It's a good segue to the next clip.
All right, let's do it.
Touch on that.
I think there is a real opportunity. We built a lot of multifamily over the course of this cycle, no doubt, in response to sort of the stylized millennial. And it's a mistake to treat the millennial population as homogenous, because it's not. But sort of this idea that every millennial who's graduated from a good college or a graduate program wants to live in a small urban apartment with access to lots of amenities and sort of lifestyle and community engagement. As the oldest millennials going into the last cycle, were in their late 20s, and they're now in their late 30s and early 40s. And I think what we see there is clear shifts in preferences that are being driven not by sort of any kind of fickleness in people's behavior, but changes in sort of where they are in the stages of their household's life cycle. And the need for more space because of child rearing, because of prioritization of, again, good quality public schools, coinciding with the potential for a shift in commuting patterns, is something that is putting upward pressure on demand for single-family rentals in the United States and small multifamily properties. And those are two areas where we've seen a paucity of new development over the course of this cycle, and where increasing construction costs, limits on the availability of skilled construction labor, have actually constrained us in bringing new supply online. It's one of the key areas where I see an opportunity for us to bring new supply online. And if there are ways in which we can address rapidly increasing construction costs, constraints on material and labor availability, perhaps through the deployment of more modular construction techniques, that's going to be an important area for growth.
I'm going to jump off that. Dean Chandan says some incredible stuff. Long, but all worth it. Just because there's so much to unpack, and it really paints a good picture of what we're seeing, whether we notice it or not, what we're seeing currently, and what we will potentially see in the future. So discussing on the trend that we've spoken about time and time again, the migration from urban areas to suburbs was already happening. It's just now an acceleration from COVID. And to touch on that, my Professor Severino at NYU Schack, he wrote an article where he examines the current landscape of the migration from urban areas into suburbs. And he touches on 5 years ago, he said this, but the real estate players didn't really want to hear it. There was the idea of the millennial pushing away from the lawnmower, from the fence, from the dog, all these components where it's like, let's just get into a small apartment in the city and blast with high amenities. But he says, in fact, the data proved otherwise. At first, there was the migration into cities, but that was more so because of an undersupply in suburban areas. Transportation into the cities was limited. But once that was restored, we were already beginning to see that push from the cities to the suburbs. And then also taking part, what Chandan mentioned, which also in the article which is touched on, the millennial generation is maybe pieced as one, but within that there's demographics. There's like the 26 to 28-year-old, and there's also the mid 30s to late 30s. In the article, Professor Severino touches on that the later 20s prefer that city environment, but then again, when you hit the later mid to late 30s, a family of four, they're preferring overwhelmingly to be in the suburbs. So to take that piece already into play with COVID, that the data will show that the migration in the suburbs has and will continue to push in the economy.
the time, the efficiency, the lack of labor needed, mitigating waste due to construction overages, all of those things that are really, really important into making new construction successful in kind of the rapid pace that our society is demanding because of this kind of accelerated movement into suburban areas. The need for single family homes makes modular construction, prefab construction, all of those kind of new trends in construction really viable options to tackle this issue that's kind of plaguing us right now, where there's an abundance of densified multifamily. We know that people are moving out of the city, not, we may not call it a mass exodus, and to Dean Chandan's point, but there is a need for single family homes. And how do we accomplish that in a quick, efficient, and financially viable way? And so, yeah, I mean, I'm really big on prefab modular construction. I do think that it's definitely the future, both for single family homes and kind of some of these needs, but also in urban areas when we do see people coming back, and there's always been a need for more multifamily, more affordable housing in major metros, kind of regardless of the time. So I'm excited to kind of watch how that goes.
Me too.
Okay. I think that's it from us for this week. Any lasting impressions?
No. Shout out to Dean Chandan.
Shout out to Dean Chandan. Thanks for putting on the whole REIT series. We appreciate it. We're learning so much. And we will see you guys next time.
Thanks so much, guys.